What's going on, people? I'm Daniel Tiluk. This is Talking Tactics Daily. Remember to listen to the actual podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts. We should be there. Myself, Have Hope, and the homie Carl Anka from The Athletic, covers Manchester United for them. If you're new to the YouTube channel, like, share, subscribe, typical YouTube things. We haven't recorded the pod yet. I'm waiting on Have Hope to finish his live stream that he's doing on the Football Hut. And I figured, you know what? Instead of just sitting here on my ass, just waiting, might as well fill in a brief. So let's do it. Morocco have beaten Nigeria on penalties at the Africa Cup of Nations. There were like 3 games on at the same time, so we're going to try to discuss all of them, plus Senegal and Egypt. So we're going to begin with Morocco. It was a good 0-0 insofar as 0-0s can be good. I think that's the way I would phrase it. I don't think Morocco played exceptionally well. I don't think Nigeria played exceptionally well. And I think both teams were effective in canceling each other out, kind of sussing out where the danger was for each team. For Morocco, obviously, Brahim Diaz, the kind of acrobatics of El Kabi, and pretty much that. And for Nigeria, the trouble is obviously Ademola Lookman and Victor Osimhen. So I think both teams were very conscious of the ways that the other team could beat them and did their best to kind of snuff that out over the course of the 120 minutes that it ended up being. Morocco had the better of it. So if we're saying like who probably could have, should have had the more better opportunities to win over the course of 120, it was Morocco. But once you consider they're the home team, Nigeria are playing in a stadium that looked to be about 95% full of their people. Didn't see a lot or hear a lot from the Nigeria supporters. Normally you hear the trumpets and the gospel singing and the drums and the whole thing that they do, brass bands and whatever. Didn't hear any of that. Just a bunch of whistles. Which, by the way, a whistle tangent. I'm more a fan if there has to be kind of like a soundtrack to a game underneath the commentary. And I tend to listen to the commentary when I don't know all of the players, as well as I do maybe like in a Champions League game or Premier League game or La Liga. So most of the time I'm watching football on mute. But in world competitions, international competitions, I tend to listen to the commentary just so I know or get a better grasp of, oh, that's that guy. That's this guy. He plays here. So when you're listening to the game, Nigeria, you don't even need the commentary to tell you if you look away, because I was also paying attention to Arsenal, Chelsea. Whenever Nigeria got possession of the ball, you just heard people actually had whistles. They're able to do the ones that like you can. I wish I was able to do the one where you like the coach's whistle, where you're able to put your fingers in your mouth, something to do with your tongue, and you just blow and it goes loud. When I was a kid, I would try to practice doing what my coaches did or what a coach I had used to do. But the practice was apparently very annoying to my parents. So it was either stop that or get beats. Not by Dre. So, and then I grew out of it. But anyway, I was thinking, which whistles, or if that must be a kind of whistle soundtrack, do I prefer the kind of high pitch whistle that the North African crowds tend to give, which is a kind of, you hear it in Spain, you hear it in Italy, like basically everywhere except England, people like to whistle. And then there's the like vuvuzela, which obviously is very reminiscent of 2010, was an AFCON 2013 in the one that Nigeria won. Wasn't that one? Was it? I think so. The AFCON that Nigeria won, which was either 13 or 15, I think 13. That soundtrack was in South Africa, and you heard like the vuvuzela, and it's a very low, and that sound I prefer it. Like if I'm going to have a cricket, if the cricket sounds are going to exist, like the actual animal cricket, not the ball bat sport. If the cricket sound is going to be on my TV, let it be the low vibration. This has been way too much time on whistling. But in any event, Nigeria had probably, 40% possession. I haven't looked at the stats, but it certainly felt even. I remember the halftime stat was 44 to 50 something, if I remember correctly. So there was a lot of time for the people to whistle. By the end of the game, the Moroccan fans, I think they were a bit nervous, as any home crowd would be, that, one moment could just transpire and Nigeria score a goal from almost nothing. I think they had 1 or 2 shots on target. Bono really didn't have anything to do for Morocco. And, the whistling wasn't as deafening, I would think, by the end, certainly of the extra period, probably because the fans are tired blowing into their whistles, but also you're too nervous maybe to keep doing what you were doing in the first minute. But in any event, the game goes to penalties, and you have Stanley Nwabali, who is decent at saving penalties, against Yassine Bono, who is equally good at saving penalties. So it was kind of a 50-50, as all good penalty shootouts should be. I guess it would be worth it to say Victor Osimhen is subbed off. You have Ademola Lookman still on the pitch. You have Moses Simon on the pitch. And Alex Iwobi on the pitch. So Lookman, Simon, and Iwobi, none of them take a penalty. None of them are one of the 4 takers that Nigeria field. So maybe one of them would have been the 5th penalty taker, which means 2 out of those 3 either went up to the manager and said, penalties aren't for me, so don't put me up there, or they just couldn't cope. Double that with the fact, or ally that with Victor Osimhen, I think for the 2nd or 3rd time in his Nigeria career, has ducked penalties. I don't know really what to make of that. As Africa's best striker, I think that's fair enough to say. You don't want the penalties. He was subbed off, I think, in the 117th or 118th minute, somewhere around there. Now, Owanchu comes on and scores Nigeria's best penalty. So you could make a case that in that trade, fair enough. But why wouldn't you put Owanchu on and take off either Lookman, Simon, or Iwobi, if they're not going to take one, and leave Osimhen on there? I know he was injured and tired and whatever else. But you can't do 60, 120, 180 more seconds. I had to do math in my head. That's scary. You can do 180 more seconds and be one of the 5 takers, preferably the first taker, and leave Owanchu for later. I don't know how I feel about that with regards to Victor Osimhen. I mean, on one hand, maybe you're saving him, but he's already played 117 minutes. So what are you really saving him for? It's not like, oh, we were thinking of Victor. He was a bit tired. He was a bit fatigued. He twisted something. We were saving him for the final. You're definitely not saving him for the 3rd place game. So why isn't your best striker, the best ball striker theoretically in your team, not taking a penalty? Is he scared to take penalties? Which goes to a deeper, I think, conversation that I want to have with Double H, which is, that's have hope, by the way. Not the other one. Carl gets on us for that. Like, why are you calling him that still? Fair point. Certainly in this climate, this political climate, don't call someone 2H. In any event, does the pressure that Nigeria place on its national team create those who have something to lose, create within those who have something to lose, a feeling of terror, a feeling of fear, a feeling of danger, a feeling of, I cannot be the one that fails this nation because I'm obviously out there as one of the important people in this team, and I will be blamed and cursed and juju and everything bad that happens to me that could happen to me will happen to me because I missed this penalty. I don't think anybody is going to blame Bruno for missing or having his penalty saved. I don't think that's going to be the case. Now, Chukwueze, that was a terrible penalty that he offered. I think he just wanted to make sure it was on target, but he basically just rolled the ball to Bono. So maybe he'll receive some blame for how bad his penalty was. But I would think I'd rather my player step up and say I'm willing to take one in this big moment rather than kind of cower or, I don't know, just not live up to the moment. And I feel that the pressure that the Nigerian public, diaspora, anyone associated with that national team, they place such immense pressure on these players and this team to live up to the standard of what was one of the greatest African teams of all time in the 90s and early 2000s. And they have to, I don't know, it just feels like if you don't live up to that standard or surpass it, you're a disgrace, you're nothing, it doesn't matter anything that you do well. If you don't bring back the trophy, then you're discarded. And I think that pressure, you're not just stepping up and facing a hostile crowd in Morocco. You're not just facing Yassine Bono, who's, again, very good at saving penalties. You're not even facing the technical challenge of striking a ball from 11 yards and getting it into the goal. That's not what this is. You're going up against like what I could assume feels like you're putting your family's reputation, your whole ancestry is on the line when you step up to take those penalties for a nation as football crazy and expectant as Nigeria. And I wonder if that plays a piece in arguably your four best technicians, three. Iwobi, Lookman, Osimhen. They have to be on there to take penalties. And once they're on the pitch to take a penalty, they have to take one. And even still, obviously someone might say, well, you don't know who would have taken the fifth. Even them, it means one of them wasn't going to step up and take one, which I feel like is a bit mean to put that pressure on certainly Bruno. Whose penalty was decent, and Bono made a very interesting save. But I'm sure that, like, the way that it was looking, Bassi was more likely to be taking that fifth penalty, even though he missed previously, than anyone. Because I'm sure he would have just wanted to rectify, to just, I missed the last one, I'll make the next one. Don't worry about it. And I'm thinking of a tournament before. Maybe, did Bassi miss a penalty in the previous tournament? Maybe I'm stupid. But I feel like I remember Calvin Bassi missing a penalty quite badly. Not in this tournament, obviously, because they haven't needed to. But, yeah. Somebody write down in the comments whether or not Calvin Bassi missed a penalty. Maybe I'm making up things in my brain. In any event, Morocco do what they need to do. Hakimi's penalty was, again, fine. In Nesri's penalty, bro, the last two penalties, in Stanley and Wabble, he guessed the right way. And if Nesri didn't hit the ball with that much pace, Stanley is saving it. And then it's going to whoever the fifth one is to consolidate. The kind of swings and roundabouts of penalty shootouts are very interesting. But, Morocco qualify. They go through on home soil. I thought the ref, albeit he was Ghanaian. Like, come on, bro. Like, not that I think the ref had an undue influence over that game, but he definitely was influenced either by the crowd or those outside. We'll get to something similar here in a second. So, Egypt against Senegal. I think for the third time since 2022, even though that was AFCON 2021, for something major. So the final of 21, Senegal beat Egypt on penalties. I remember Mendy actually saved a shot, which was, a shock to those of us who paid attention to him at club level. Then they played each other to go to the World Cup, and Senegal came out on top there. And now they're playing again in a major tournament final, semifinal. And yeah, Egypt, how do I say this nicely? It was ugly to watch. It was not a great spectacle. And I blame a large part of that on the tactical choices that Egypt made. I think that's the nicest way I can say it without calling out anybody individually, because who knows, maybe one day you might mess around and meet these people. I just simply don't agree with the way that Egypt chose to play this match. And I've seen people, or I've read in our Discord, by the way, if you subscribe to the Talking Tactics podcast on Patreon, you get access to our Discord and a whole bunch of other stuff. Somebody made the point that there's a lot of, in football analysis, there's a lot of kind of consequentialism, which is that the word that was used? I want to make sure I get it right. But I'll keep talking and I'll look up the Discord in a bit. But the idea is, after the game is finished, hindsight is 2020, and it's very obvious to see how particular decisions led to particular results. And most of the time, I think I would agree with that analysis. Like 98% of the time, I'm agreeing with that analysis, that people are retrospectively tagging on some sort of football genius that they think they have and pasting it onto a result that's very now obvious to deduce. This result, this particular game, I feel like was very easy to figure out how this game was going to go. After 15, 20 minutes, the chessboard was set. All of the Egypt players were defending. Senegal was going to have the ball. If Egypt had the ball for longer than 30 seconds, certainly in Senegal's half, that was a mistake by either the players or Senegal did something bad. And it was going to be one of three things. Either nobody does anything with the ball for Senegal, or they miss a bunch of chances and the game ends 0-0, or Senegal make a very costly mistake in their build-up. They lose the ball. Egypt find a way to get either Marmoush or Mohamed Salah in space, and they somehow create a goal from nothing, and Egypt go up 1-0, and then even further their defensive line back and try to hold out for the 1-0. Or the last option, which is the more preferable option, and the option that happened, was Senegal find their breakthrough, which then forces Egypt to come out. Now, the question after 15 minutes I'm asking myself is, if Senegal score first, when? If Senegal score first after 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 minutes, that then gives Egypt certainly enough time to flip the script. It gives them enough time to put on all their attackers, which they eventually did. And maybe they can cause Senegal an issue. But Senegal scored in the 78th minute, which meant Egypt had 10 plus whatever the ref was going to give. 12. Did I say 10? 12 plus whatever the ref was going to give. Again, don't ask me to do math. I'm trying to look up the words. I told you guys, I have ADD. I'm not happy until I look up what this word is. Was I right? Consequentialism. I feel like I said that. But still, Mané, it was a freak of a goal. Like, I don't think Mané would have known the ball was coming to him in that exact place. Somebody shoots from 30 meters or something like that. It deflects. hits Mané maybe in his midriff somewhere, elbow-ish, upper arm, torso. I never saw a replay of exactly where it hit Mané. Clearly didn't hit the hands, otherwise VAR would have gone and looked at it. I was thinking if that was against Morocco, I wonder what happens with that goal. In any event, Mané shoots a shot along the ground, very powerful, great technique, and it beats, why am I forgetting the Egyptian keeper's name? El something. See, another thing I have to look up. El Shanawi. I didn't need to look it up. I'm sorry. In any event, yes. I keep saying in any event. That's my transition word. That for like the past few days. In any event. And then the uhs are back. Boy, this kind of talking to yourself on YouTube thing is not as easy as people make it seem. Nonetheless. So as soon as Senegal score, Egypt now, they go crazy. If it was like a scale between 0 and 10, with 0 being ultra defensive and 10 being ultra attacking, they were probably hovering around 2.5, 3 in terms of their kind of conservative approach. Mané scores, they go 9.5, 10. They take off midfielders, they put on all of their strikers. And to be fair, it worked to an extent. I mean, it got the one shot on target from Marmoush that Mendy just kind of caught. But it's like, football isn't 90 minutes if you're sitting alone in a dark room with no book, no phone, no PlayStation, no TV. 90 minutes feels like a long time. In a boring class, 90 minutes is a very long time to just sit around. When you're actually doing stuff, something that's fun, maybe like playing a sport, like playing football, or even watching it, 90 minutes is not that long it doesn't feel that long. And then you have to think, how long is the ball actually in play? In the best of times, the ball is in play for an hour of the 90 minutes. So in this game, the ball was probably in play for like 50 minutes max. No, I can't say max. An hour max, let's say. So you don't have that long in order to break down a team, in order to score a goal. So to decide, it's the last 12 minutes now. Now we're going to go for it. And once we're forced to go for it, rather than kind of imposing yourself on the game, I feel like it's an interesting decision, but one that's typical of this particular Egyptian team. Egypt are another team similar to Nigeria that I think play with a lot of pressure. And this team in particular is playing with the ghosts of the golden generation that preceded them. These aren't the Abu Trika Egypt. These guys are living in their shadow. And Mohamed Salah in particular, I think you have 2 more shots at this thing in 2027 and 28. Once it gets to 28 and the next one's in 2032, yeah, maybe he keeps in good shape, but I don't think that one's for him. So they're play everything is against them. It's such a strange dynamic watching Egypt. Certainly, like when you get to quarterfinal, semifinal, final of AFCON, like they never foul, but they're always fouled. They swarm the referee crazy. I can remember maybe it was 2 AFCONs ago where Salah comes up to the referee and he's just kind of making the case, being a lawyer, a barrister for Egypt, and the referee is basically just like he takes his whistle and his notepad and he's just he offers it to Salah as if, do you want to referee? Like, here, okay, go ahead. And Egypt play every game like that. And I think their tactical setup lends to it because it's very much siege mentality, us against the world. Nobody believes in us, even though you're Egypt. And yeah, I find them in the worst of times, I want to turn my television off when I watch Egypt. In the best of times, it's just a struggle. And I'm pleased that Senegal were the team that won. If that's how Egypt were choosing to play in the final, and trust me, they would have played even more defensive against Morocco. Egypt have incredible players, a lot of them homegrown. They play in their Egyptian league, the Egyptian Premier League. They have wonderful talent that always does well, certainly on the African continent. And I know that their club teams a lot of times play in similar ways, certainly in like CAF Champions League or wherever else. But sometimes you just wish you have a lot of great players. Impose yourself on the game. Now, you know what? I'm going to save that for the actual podcast. I was going to talk about how I feel about yellow card suspensions, but I'm looking at the clock and I want to get out of here with enough time to kind of decompress this one before we get into something new. So Chelsea and Arsenal were playing while Morocco and Nigeria were playing. So I had Morocco, Nigeria on the small screen and Chelsea, Arsenal on the big screen for reasons. Pirate what? Who said that? Shout out Half Hope. That's a Half Hopeism. Who said that? Chelsea were lucky to finish that game with the scoreline that it was. 2 Garnacho goals, essentially from Pedro Neto crosses. That was he looking for Garnacho on either of them? Perhaps the first one, definitely not the second one. But they end up falling to Garnacho, and Garnacho scores far post, near post. He's at the far post, shoots near post, and it goes in both times. I don't think Chelsea acquitted themselves all too well, but I do think Arsenal would be kind of sick to either concede certainly the second of Garnacho's, probably even both of Garnacho's, and you could basically end this tie in the first leg by being up 2-0, 3-1, 3-0, something that gives you some cushion for what the second leg will bring you. So again, I was more intently watching Morocco, Nigeria. I just kind of had this game on in the background, but I did recognize like, how is this game even within touching distance for Chelsea at this point? Because it just looks like Arsenal are clearing them. The Zubamendi goal, by the way, Fofana. That was bad. That was a bad look. When a DM gives you drop shoulder, lifts up his leg like he's going to shoot, and you buy it. Fully bought it. Should also mention Sanchez. First 2 goals. PU. Stinky. Bad goalkeeping. Now, he did make one great save, I think, on Marino, where he made himself the star, top of the star, 1, 2, and then your feet. It hit his right foot. So more by accident than by skill, but he made himself big. And, so that was a good save. So maybe that offsets one of the bad mistakes you made. So one bad mistake, we'll say, in total. Another thing I probably need to say for the actual podcast, but the manager of Chelsea Football Club has changed. Enzo Maresca is no longer involved. Yet, Liam Rosenior, why are you taking off defenders? Center backs. He took off 2 center backs and replaced them, I believe, with 2 more center backs. What is up? What is going on at Chelsea Football Club where it's just, let's take off center backs for center backs? What kind of football management is this? This is how I know Rosenior is a puppet. Because these calls must be coming from above him. I refuse to believe that back-to-back coaches are like taking off defenders for no reason. You're down 3-1. And we're going to take off, I don't know who they took off. Was it Badia Chile or they took off Chalaba and brought on Hato? What? Why? Make it make sense. It doesn't make sense. I'm hearing noises outside now. Let's finish this. Real Madrid. Let me get the name correct. Let me consult the Albacete. Albacete. No, that's not my line. Albacete. That's what we're gonna go with. I'm looking at it spelled here, guys. They're in the second division, and we're losing to them. I say we. You're losing to them? What's going on? This is deeper than Arbeloa. This is deeper than Xabi Alonso. This is deeper than Mbappe. This is deeper than Vinicius. Deeper than Perez. What's going on now? I'm just looking at myself in the mirror at this point. I don't even know what's going on. I'm trying to come up with analysis, but I don't want to just chat rubbish. So I didn't watch this game. I was just monitoring it on my phone. So I had 3 screens, to be fair. I had big screen, Chelsea Arsenal, computer screen, which was the main screen, unironically, or ironically, sadly, actually, Nigeria, Morocco. And then on my phone, I was watching the SofaScore kind of ticker come through. And I'm like, they're down 1-0. They get 1-1 before halftime. I'm like, okay, maybe there's nothing to worry about. 2-1. That's odd. Then 2-2. Gonzalo Garcia, 90-something minute. I'm like, oh, I guess it's going to penalties. I don't think they do extra time. And then you see immediately, goal, 3-2. Not for Madrid, but for Albacete. Albacete. I don't know how to pronounce it. Again, I told you I'm Spanishly challenged. That can't run. So, like I said a couple days ago, the most powerful that Alvaro Arbeloa was going to be was in the 2 days between when he was appointed and this game. He's already on the back foot now. So I don't know who they play in the league next, but that game has to be a win. You're resting players even. So if you rest players, lose in the Copa del Rey, then lose further ground to Barcelona, God help you. Because I don't think Madrid fans are in any mood for anything project. Let's see how it goes. They're already pissed off with the team. They don't like the players. I don't know. If there was an election like right now, I wonder if Florentino Perez would win it. There's a question from Madrid fans. If Florentino was up for election, I don't know if he can be, but like if the election was, if they called a snap election like they do in the UK, just to test the waters. Let's see how thin the ice is. If there was an election held on January 15th, you think Florentino would be voted president? Because I feel like a lot of the frustration that people are starting to have with Real Madrid is they're going to go from, okay, the players are the players, the manager's the manager, but what about that third level? Because you're already out of the cup, lost the Super Cup. Barcelona looks likely to win the league. Champions League could be saving grace. And it always has been historically for Real Madrid. But this team, I don't know how you win, how they're winning a Champions League. I don't see it. I really don't. But this game isn't necessarily evidence to discuss the players because a lot of them were just out for, recovery reasons, I would assume. But even still, the team that I saw on paper should be beating any team in the second division of Spanish football. I'm sorry. So it's worth mentioning. Maybe have Hope watched more of it and we can get into that on the actual podcast. But in any event, this has been Talking Tactics Daily. I thank you for listening to me ramble. Talking Tactics podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get podcasts, we're there. Should be out hopefully Thursday sometime. So check your podcast feeds. If you're just a YouTube merchant and you just want to stay here and listen to me again talk, hit the subscribe button, hit the like, hit the share, YouTube speech. You guys know exactly what to do. My name is Daniel Tiluk again. See you either tomorrow or the next day. Peace out.